government or not. We have divided branches of government under any circumstances.
I want to bring in Melody again in Chicago, and I want to put up some poll numbers because I want to ask about jobs. Look, right now it looks like the Congress is at historic lows in terms of approval. There are something like 82% of people who disapprove, 14% who approve. What are people saying, not just about a downgrade and the debt ceiling crisis, but about what affects them, jobs? Do they have faith that this Congress, this presidency can deal with the very real issue of jobs?
So first of all, I have to say, I don't think the average person is thinking about the U.S. downgrade. I want to be very specific about that. I think the average person is thinking about their own bank account, their own wallet, and for that reason, the average person is thinking about jobs. If they have a job, they want to make sure it's safe. If they don't have a job, they desperately want one. So to me, jobs is job one, both for the administration as well as both parties. And if that isn't front and center, and I actually do believe that it is, you know, nothing else matters. Sovereign issues don't matter. What's going on in Europe, Middle East, what have you. Everything is local, as that old saying goes. And in this case, it's local in terms of their own pocketbook.
Can I just say one thing about this? Look, we all agree jobs is very, very important, at least as important, more important. But the thing that bothers me, and I'm in favor of fiscal restraint, I'm in favor of dealing with the budget, not in favor of a balanced budget amendment. We can debate that separately. But what Senator Sessions said and what some of the other folks who are on the other side of this say, that cutting the budget deficit, reducing spending is going to create jobs, is just fundamentally wrong. It's the right fiscal policy, it's not the right jobs policy.
Can we talk about perhaps an engine? Because obviously we've talked about the politics of all of this, including the politics of jobs. But what about the structural issues? I mean, how does one really kickstart an economy and actually get people out onto the payrolls again? The FCC, for instance, is doing some big sort of onshoring in terms of call centers. That's one idea, 100,000 new call center jobs they've proposed. One of the Jobs Council members is talking about getting a lot more engineers, you know, educated and into the American economy.
That'll take many years.
Okay, so where do we go?
It's not clear what will work. It's pretty clear what won't work. We've had a stimulus. There are now 2 million more people unemployed than there were when the stimulus was passed. We now have a record 1 in 7 American households on food stamps. We have wagered this economy on a mistaken view of the multiplier effect of federal dollars spent to create jobs. It didn't work. Let's try something else.
Well, let me just quickly ask
that right now the jobs, the unemployment numbers are very much boosted by state and local governments laying off people because they no longer have the stimulus to pay them with. So there is a problem there.
Yeah, so we have to put more, you know, one of the things that people don't want to talk about is corporate incentives. Right now, no one wants to give the corporations any extra help, but there are corporate incentives out there that could move the job story. So one, giving the corporations the ability to repatriate all this money that they have all over the world without a huge amount of taxation. If you tied it to job creation and investment spending, that would help this country. I heard a great idea from Alan Casey, who's running for Senate in Massachusetts, who talked about the 99ers. The people who are getting 99 weeks of unemployment insurance. Give the corporations a sponsorship for those 99ers. Tell them, we will give you a voucher for 99 weeks of compensation with the hope that you will bring these people on full time. Not to mention how it affects people's psychology, that they can get up and go to work every day. Talk about affecting sentiment in this country.
Well, we're not just one good tax increase away from prosperity. That's not the way that we're going to actually grow the economy and grow jobs in this country. We need stability in our government. We need predictability. If you look at all the new regulations that have been about the health care, the EPA, in my state of Utah, energy is a huge, in fact, that's where the best jobs are. We don't have an energy policy in this. So there are lots of things we can do to grow jobs, but stability is part of it.
But Congressman, stability and predictability went out the window over the debt ceiling debate. And that's one of the reasons that we're in the mess that we're in right now.
Look, I think there's no question that a loss of confidence in the government is affecting behavior. If you look at consumer confidence numbers, they're down. If you look at business activity, it's down. All that is absolutely true. The second thing that I believe is absolutely true is that the steps that were taken both by President Bush and by President Obama to save the economy did help. It's a counterfactual, but I would argue that things would be a lot worse but for what we did. And then lastly, I do think that the solution to this is a series of probably small bore kinds of approaches like some of what you heard.
Let's quickly turn to politics and who may or may not jump into the race. Let's just take a look at Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, and his religious preaching actually yesterday.
I sincerely pray that our willingness to stand in the public square, to acknowledge the God who made us, will inspire others to open their minds and their hearts to his love.
George, where does this put him in the presidential stakes? And do you think he's still going to jump in?
I do, and when he jumps in, he will campaign on the theme of Texas exceptionalism. It's one of only 3 states that today has more jobs than it had before the recession. 37% of all the jobs created in this country since the recovery began, what we smilingly call the recovery, were created in Texas.
And what do you think of his move there in Houston? Do you think that was wise for a presidential candidate, potential candidate?
At this stage in the nominating process, very.
Do you? Is he a candidate you'll get behind?
People getting closer to God and praying is a good thing. I happen to think that Mitt Romney is the most formidable. He would be the best person at this job. He understands the economy, capital formation, and jobs. And that I support Mitt Romney.
And there'll be a lot more of this conversation in the green room. The roundtable does